Hey folks, it's your Hollywood Progressive team back again on April Fool's Day, and it's no joke. We're here. Yesterday we saw a really thought-provoking play called Faithless. It's playing at the Victory Theater in Burbank through April 14th. It's written by Jon Klein and directed by Maria Gobetti. Maria Gobetti is the main person now at Victory Theater. In it, four family members look at the need for religion in their lives from four different positions. One is an older man nearing the end of his life who is a committed atheist. Others are his stepson as a wavering minister, his stepdaughter as a secular school teacher, and an adopted teenage daughter who wants to be a nun, even though it doesn't appear that she's a Catholic. Stars Idakitis, Jon Sprik, Melissa Ortiz, and Josie Guadin. What'd you think about it, hon?
Well, I like the set. The set, it's sort of a traditional play in that the set is, well, there were a couple of moving parts on the set, but for the most part, it's a setting in a living room in sort of a standard middle-class home. The characters, the father, his two stepchildren and his adopted daughter are kind of coming out of grief. They had only recently lost the mother. And they're dealing with, you called it in your piece, or maybe they call it, the role of religion in their lives. And I have this pet peeve about the use of the word religion, because what they're really dealing with is not really so much organized religion, but really a belief in God. Which is that's not about religion. Religion and believing in God and praying are two different things. There are many people that go to church regularly, and it's a tradition for them. In some cases, it's cultural, and maybe they have no belief in God at all. So what this is really about is belief in God. And one of the members is a pastor. The brother is a pastor. The two grown children. Well, you mentioned the teacher. And so even he talks about, even though he's clearly religious because he's employed in his capacity as a Presbyterian. He's a Presbyterian. He's definitely religious, but he actually questions his belief in God and whether he believes God exists or not. So I think that the kinds of questions that are addressed in this are sort of the same old questions that every human being struggles with from time to time throughout their lives. I didn't feel that the play had an arc, the arc that you talk about, Dick, where, you come to some kind of crisis or something has to be accomplished, or it didn't. It was kind of flat in that respect, but the performances were strong, were believable, and it was enjoyable. It wasn't great. Because it was just so flat, so from the time that you entered until the time the play was over, there was nothing that would, get you on the edge of your seat or make you wonder, how's this going to work out? You kind of knew how it was going to work out, and there was nothing surprising.
I have to agree with you, Sharon. It's an interesting topic to discuss. It's interesting to see within a family unit the difference of opinion, difference of belief, whatever word you want to use, and how they each sort of bring that to the discussion. But it didn't feel like there was any new revelation added to the topic by the playwright. It felt like, and I think we said something similar along these lines afterwards, but it felt like we as the audience were just kind of a fly in the wall of any large family that has varying beliefs in God or views on religion. And it just seemed like a conversation that will inevitably come up. And yeah, it got heated. And yes, there was a building and a climax and some sort of resolution, but it was anticipated. I felt it coming from the moment we sat down. You could sort of tell because, there was, I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, you sort of could guess where things were going to end up going. I did enjoy the dynamic of the adopted daughter. I may be biased, but that was a very interesting, unique dynamic. I have comments about that, but they're not really relevant to the entirety of the play. There were little side things that being adopted, I wouldn't necessarily agree with, and I think that stems more from perhaps the playwright doesn't have experience with adopted family members.
Go for it, Nia. What do you have to say?
Okay, so there was a lot of emphasis put on her coming from, I guess, a Catholic orphanage. And I don't know if you remember being a baby, but there isn't much, like, there was a lot of pressure put on because this was the character who came out that she wanted to become a nun. And the playwright did a good job of speculating why perhaps the youngest person in a generation might want to lead a very rigid, planned out sort of life as a nun, that I do agree with to an extent. But there was a lot of emphasis from her family members of, oh, well, you probably only want this because you came from a Catholic orphanage and you remember the Catholic nuns being nice to you. And that hit me as odd because babies don't do that.
I mean, you don't remember having your diaper changed?
No, I may be the outlier. I may be crazy here, but and it wasn't just like once. It was several times. That was like their main, like, are you just saying this because you came from a Catholic orphanage? And that hit me as very strange. But aside from that, I did enjoy the dynamic, and I did believe that the daughter was the daughter of the father who adopted her, and it was very believable relationship. Just things like that of, I don't know if a baby would remember that much to the point that it would imprint on them so much that then 18 or however many years later, she felt the pull to become a Catholic nun. And maybe they had told her stories about the fact, and they said it a lot as she was growing up, that you came from a Catholic orphanage. Great, but that was never said. So it seemed very much like they were just going off of her as a baby witnessing Catholic nuns and that being the reason why she wanted to be a nun. That was very strange to me and didn't
Yeah, because they didn't even give me any other insight as to why, if she's being raised in a family that really is not very religious or spiritual, why this specific thing of wanting to be a nun. They don't really give any insight except to say that she was probably influenced by coming from a Catholic orphanage.
Yeah,
It did seem to be
she and the stepsister, who was a religious studies
professor. She's not a professor. She's a high school
teacher, but she has her master's in religious. Like, this is what she dedicated her life to, was religious studies. And she offers some more meaningful insight eventually about, there's a lot of resistance from the younger generations against what the older generations highly valued, because we see how that turned out and we don't want that for ourselves. Or there's a lot of uncertainty as a young person right now. We can't just go buy a house. We can't just go out and get a job. We can't just do the things that our parents and our great grandparents did. And so she brought up the fact that as a nun, everything is laid out, and everything, they're offered room and board, they're offered, this education within the Catholic Church. And the daughter did make the point that she ultimately wanted to help people. She wanted to do service outside of herself. I do think it's a little naive that a young woman would think the only way to do that is to become a nun. That's another qualm that I had. But the playwright made it believable and offered some reasons as to why this young person might potentially look towards a more structured path. I think if this was written maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that structured path would probably be the military. So I'm happy it's not the military, because I don't think, that's a different conversation. So I think it's just a different path that is has more certainty laid out in it, in the sense that, you know, you will have a place to live and you will hopefully be doing good for others. But again, I don't believe that this young woman, I think she was 15, 16, 17 maybe.
She's supposed to be 16.
Supposed to be 16. I don't believe that if the playwright made it seem like her sole purpose was to help others. I don't believe that a young girl would think the only way to do that is to become a nun. That's me personally. I think it could be a good way, but they brought up the contention that you know, there's a lot of problems within the Catholic organized religion, and you know, the young girl came with, oh, basically like it doesn't have to be that way, and it was brought back. Well, it's been 2,000 years, like it's ingrained at this point. If it was gonna change, it would have changed. So it was an interesting insight. I guess I can believe it. They worked it so that I could see how this person turned towards wanting to become a nun. I'm not sure if out of that context, a young 16-year-old would turn to becoming a nun with the sole goal of being to help others under the name of God. I think it's known that there are other ways to do it.
Okay, my turn.
Yes.
So I mean, this was a timeless play in the sense that people are always debating and looking at their faith. I mean, when we got together, we had to noodle on what kind of church we would go to, and use the internet, and settled on Unitarian Universalists. I mean, and the acting, I thought was really well done. I mean, it was. I didn't think it was a fascinating play, but they certainly executed their parts quite well. But in a sense, it wasn't only timeless; it was dated in a way. Dated in the sense that this play could have been written exactly the same way, presented exactly the same way 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 60 years ago. And in fact, you liked the set, but the set looked like a house where an old person has lived for 40 years and still has the furniture from when they got married, which was in a way kind of a downer. I mean, we've gone to recent plays where more, I would say, avant-garde or more imaginative use of the stage. It is an important topic. It also doesn't seem to be on the cutting edge of today's discussion, except in the sense of two things. So I looked it up. 20 years ago, 42% of Americans went to church at least once or twice a month. And now that number is down to 30%, and it's continuing to decline, especially because your age, Nia, your generations and younger, are not hooking into religion at all. And yet at the same time, we are confronted with the Christian right, the white evangelicals. Their numbers may not be growing hugely, but their influence is really impacting us. I mean, they're what's behind the movement to take away abortion rights, to take away IVF, to attack trans people, to censor books in school libraries. I mean, it's really, and it boggles my mind. We have a lot of discussions about that, not so much the discussion about what's the nature of God and what do we believe about God. I mean, you have your views, Sharon, and I have mine, but we do have a lot of discussion on what the heck is going on with people that want to take away women's rights. You know, they point to the Bible. And
that's pretextual. You know, at some point you got to say, call it for what it is. There's nothing that they do that resembles anything that I would call as Christianity.
Yeah, but except that they are wrapped in the robes of Jesus Christ, and they think they are represented to the world. I would imagine that kind of behavior is driving away younger people who might think they want to go to church, and yet they think they see these people shooting up abortion clinics. Anyway, I thought it was a decent play. I thought it was the dialogue was really well done. I didn't think it was particularly moving for today's conversation.
Yep. Okay, so you want to repeat the name of the play and where it's playing and how long it'll be there?
Yes, it's Faithless, plays at Burbank's Victory Theater through April 14th. We do somewhat recommend it.
Yeah,
Is that fair to say?
I guess. Yeah.
A lowercase somewhat.
Okay, good. All right, Nia, so we'll see you at the next play.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for sticking around. If you like the LA Progressive content and the discussions we have here, please consider clicking the subscribe button below and also give us a thumbs up. That helps to grow our audience by feeding the algorithm, which helps to get this content in front of more eyes. Thanks for stopping by. We really appreciate your support.